Hi, I'm Joanna of Custom Quilts, and I'm excited to be quilting the Janome Rainbow Block of the Month. So this block of the month is a really fun quilt, and I'm going to show you step by step how to quilt each block. So some things that you might need are some marking tools, maybe a Choco liner. I also like to use an air erasable pen. Sometimes I use a water erasing marker, but I don't always like to use those. I typically use the air erasing pens more often. The Choco liner in white chalk is really important. This is a tool that I heavily lean on. And then I'm going to be using the Janome ditch ruler. This is a really great ruler that fits in your hand comfortably that will help you achieve some great ruler work. And then for some of our longer straight lines, the Janome straight line ruler. So let's get started. Let's get into it. All right, so this is the next block that we're going to be quilting, and you can see that I've already made some reference marks just to kind of remind me of what I'm going to be doing. So in these little small, I guess, dark pink triangles, I'm going to be doing just some simple ruler work here. Up here, I'm going to be doing these cute little, I don't know what those are called, maybe wishbones, to fill up this square. And I'm going to do those on point in each one of these maroon or magenta squares. In the center, I'm going to do some simple ruler work. So I already went and made my reference marks here. I marked the center of the square, and then each of these little hash marks are a 1/2 inch apart. And then on the outside of this dark purple, I'm going to be quilting straight lines here. I'm going to do that in each corner. And then this on point square here, I'm going to be quilting these little, I don't know what those are called. Just little swirls, I guess. And so, or loops. Loops is more appropriate. So that's going to go here, 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 and here. All right. And then in our negative space in these gray rectangles, these are going to be the smoky swirls. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so we are ready to get started, and if you've watched any of my other videos in the series, you know that I always start by stabilizing the outside of my block before I start quilting the inside of it. So we're going to go ahead and do that first. I'm going to be using, for the most part, this Janome ditch ruler. And you can see that I put like some glittery, very thin washi tape on the back side of it. And that's not really necessary, but I like it gives kind of a little bit of extra grip to it so the ruler doesn't slide around as easily. So I'm going to be quilting the outside of this block. It's important to take your time whenever you're doing ditch work so that your quilting actually falls in the ditch. So you can see right here, I got a little bit out of that ditch. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect, especially if you're doing this as a practice piece. It's good to get that practice in somehow. So we're just going to take our time going around the block. Nothing to it. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and get started on the inside quilting of this block. And I'm going to go ahead and stitch around the outside. Now on these darker fabrics, I want to be really careful that I'm actually stitching in the ditch because I have a light gray thread. And while it blends really nicely on this this light gray fabric, it tends to stand out quite a bit more on darker fabrics. So I want to really take my time so that I'm falling within that seam line in the ditch. And you can see I'm not doing a terribly great job. You can see my thread there, but that's okay. All right, I'm gonna come over here and quilt this piece. Go ahead and do my kind of modern straight lines over here. These always look so nice. I love, love, love how this looks. I'm gonna go ahead and I've kind of quilted myself into a corner, and I don't want to do my swirls from right to left here, or my wishbones, because I tend to quilt them better going left to right. And I could do them right to left. The first one I do, I don't want them to be sloppy. So I'm going to go ahead and quilt this line so that I get back to where I want to be on the other side. A lot of quilting is thinking about your quilting plan before you actually do the quilting and thinking about where you're going to end up whenever you're quilting. And that can be a really difficult part, but it also is kind of a fun part. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do these straight lines here. And I really need to go ahead and stitch in the ditch right here also. Oh yes, nailing it. Okay, that is perfect. All right, now I still need to be on the opposite corner of that dark pink square. So I'm going to go ahead and quilt the straight lines here because it will leave me where I need to be in the end. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and quilt my swirls here. And the main thing that I want to watch for whenever I'm quilting these wishbones is I want for my loop to be centered in the points. So I'm going to be looking ahead whenever I'm quilting to kind of plan for those loops to fall where I want them. And you'll see what I mean once I start going. So I made sure that on my spacing, whenever I was quilting these, that these loops would fall right in the center there. And I could have done these a little bit closer together, but I wanted to make sure that fell where I wanted it to. So I'm going to go ahead and quilt my smoky swirls here. Okay, so I'm done with that part. I'm going to go ahead and stitch in the ditch around this square. Good, that was much better than my other attempt over here. So now again, whenever I quilt my wishbones, I'm going to be watching for this bottom point and the top point up here so that my loops fall right in the center of those. Yes, nailed it. Perfect, that was right where I wanted to be. And these kind of got a little sloppy. I was going too fast there. But that's what happens whenever you can plan them out. So you're kind of eyeballing the top point and the bottom point. I'm doing my modern straight lines here. Okay, now I still need to get over here and quilt this one, so I'm going to have to backtrack on some of my quilting that I already did, which I don't like to do, but sometimes that's just how it is. And see, now I'm going to end up here where I don't want to be, so I'm going to quilt back over here and finish this line up. Okay. And I think I'm actually going to go ahead and quilt these straight lines just so you can see what my plans are here for this. So I'm spacing these a ½ inch apart, approximately. Just some nice simple ruler work. Come up here and finish off this line too. let's see, what do I want to do here? So I'm taking a little break to think about where I want to go for this quilting. I think I'm going to go ahead and stitch in the ditch and do my smoky swirls in this rectangle, because I don't want to end up all the way on the other side of the block over here and then have this to come back and do. So I need to think about my thread path and how I'm going to get there. All right, smoky swirls, here we go. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do my modern lines here. Beautiful. I love that I already did all my reference marks. That saves so much time when that's already done and you don't have to mess with it while you're quilting. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and come over here and I'm going to quilt down here. I think that is going to be my plan. That's what I'm going to do. That will help me avoid some of the backtracking. Okay, so over here, I'm going to start my wishbones, and again, I'm going to be eyeballing kind of the bottom tip and the top tip to make sure that my wishbone swirls land where I want them to. Perfect, that was just what I wanted. Okay, so I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna quilt some lines parallel to that first one I did. I'm gonna go ahead and come in here and quilt the middle of the block because I can see I've already made kind of a difficult situation for myself. I'm gonna have to backtrack on these lines to get to where I want to be. So I'm going to switch rulers and I'm going to use this Janome straight edge ruler because it has a little more length to it. I'm going to start and quilt my diagonal lines. And now I'm going to switch back to my ditch ruler because it's a little smaller. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and stitch in the ditch here before I start my ruler work in the middle. There we go. All right. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and quilt my swirls, or loops rather, right here. And I'm going to be watching my boundary line so that I don't quilt over that. This next loop, I want to be right in the peak of this point, okay? Okay. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and quilt my loops here. Again, I'm gonna watch that top peak. That's where I want my loop to fall. And I've done these a lot in triangular spaces like this, so I can kind of eyeball it. But if you're in doubt, it can be really helpful to mark these before you quilt them so that you know for sure where your path is gonna be. Okay, I'm gonna come down here. Okay, and now I'm gonna quilt my loops here, and I'm gonna watch to make sure that it falls in the point here. So you can see I kind of overshot that line and my stitching line went past my straight line. I want to really watch so that that doesn't happen again on this next one that I do. That was a little bit better. Okay, so I need to follow this line out. So I'm being very careful to make sure I'm stitching directly on top of that previous stitch line so it doesn't show as much. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and quilt my straight lines here, and then I've got just the smoky swirls left here, and I'm done. So and that is it. We are done with this block. That was so fast. So we'll go ahead and take a look at our finished block and appreciate our wonderful free motion quilting with a little bit of ruler work added in. All right, so we're done with this block and it turned out so nice. I love the free motion mixed in with the ruler work. Really, really makes this block pop.